What's going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be doing a Xero Shoes comparison. So we have the Prio, the HFS, and the 360 up here. And the goal of this video is to talk about the different contexts in which each of these models excel. So then that way, if you are looking into one of these shoes, you can compare how you plan to use it with where they're going to excel the best. And I want to talk about some construction similarities and differences between each of these shoes. As always, I have timestamped everything down below, so check out the timestamps, jump around, get the info you need, and get out of this video and go train. But now, that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into our first section. Our first category includes which of these models is best for lifting. So the good thing with these models and with most barefoot shoes is that they're all going to be pretty similar when it comes to lifting. They all have wider toe boxes. Like all of these shoes, toe boxes are similar in width, so you do have ample room to splay the toes and fully grip the ground, and the soles in these models are all fairly consistent. So if you are worried about stability or just how the shoe fits, all these models will work. However, there are certain categories in which I would place these models being a slightly better in when it comes to lifting. If you are a recreational lifter and you're just getting into barefoot shoes and you don't plan to do any form of cross training or running in your model, then I would say go Prio. This is a pretty standard model. It's going to be better for your budget, and across the board, it does a really good job in the lifting context. Plus, all these models have removable insoles with internal constructions that are finished. So if you want to take out the insole and get even closer to the ground in any of these shoes for lifting, you can do that. If you are planning to lift, but also do some speed work and some running, the HFS is a really good model. This model is somewhat of a hybrid between running and lifting focus. So this model has a more breathable upper construction, which I think feeds really well into running, especially if you're running outdoors. So if you plan to lift and do some running, the HFS is going to be your call. And then lastly, if you are a cross training or CrossFit focused athlete and you want a pair of Xero shoes for tackling those workouts, daily wear, some casual runs, then the 360 is going to be your best call. This model has a slightly more durable upper construction, which will feed better into if you're using this for rope climbs or anything else where there's going to be a lot of abrasion on the upper. So that being said, all these models work well for lifting. If you're more of a recreational lifter and you want to save, go for the Prio. If you like to do running and lifting and what kind of that hybrid model in between, go with the HFS. And then if you're more of a CrossFit or cross training style lifter slash athlete, go with the 360. Our next category is which of these shoes is best for running. So based off my last section, you probably already have a hunch there, but the HFS is going to be your best bet up here if you're tackling shorter to mid-range runs. This model is super lightweight, the upper breathes well, and I think this is one of the better shoes for tackling like sprints and speed work if you're at the track or on the field and you want a nice, very minimalist shoe for doing that in. My next pick would be the 360. The upper breathes decently well in this model, and across the board, it's going to be good for shorter to mid-range runs. It has a sole construction that wraps a bit more than the HFS, so this model's sole is pretty durable across the board. So if you are just using them for casual running and cross training and lifting, the 360 is a good bet. The Prio will work as well. However, they are the thickest in regard to their upper construction. The toe box is a tad heavy, and they're not necessarily my go-to if I'm going to be using a barefoot shoe for shorter to mid-range runs. Our next section is which of these models is best for daily wear. So let's say you're looking into a barefoot shoe to start wearing on a day-to-day basis to start acclimating to the style of footwear. Which model should you go with? My first pick is going to be the Prio, and that is because it's so budget friendly. Its construction is consistent, it's decently durable, and if you're trying to lift, wear a model for day-to-day wear, and maybe do some casual runs, the Prio will be a good model for tackling all of that in, and it will save you a little bit of money. My next pick would go to the 360, and that's because it does have a slightly more durable upper construction and the sole wraps a bit more. So for daily wear, I think that could be a really good thing for long-term durability, and this model looks pretty good for day-to-day wear and more casual basis settings. My third pick is then the HFS, and not that this model doesn't work for daily wear, but compared to the Prio and the 360, I think if you have the option and the bandwidth or budget to look into all three of these, I think these two are better options for daily wear, and then the HFS would be my third pick here. When discussing sizing and fit in all three of these models, in regard to width, they are all very similar. but in length, they are a little bit different. So in the Prio and the 360, you should be safe going true to size. And then in the HFS, I would highly recommend sizing up a half size to a full size. This is also what Xero Shoes recommends on their site. They say go up a half size. So overall, this is a size 10 and my toes are pretty much at the end of this. So going up a half size, I think for myself would be safe. But if you're constantly pushing the envelope in your normal true to size, then going up a full size may be the call in the HFS if you are looking into this model. When chatting on price in these models, for the HFS and the Xero Shoes 360, you can expect to pay $119.99 USD, and then for the Prio, it comes in at $89.99 USD. So there's a pretty big price difference there of $30 USD, which hopefully in the performance section helps to contextualize if spending that extra bit of money is worth it for your needs. Now, 3 construction similarities of all of these models include: number 1, they all use Xero Shoes Feel True rubber soles. These soles are backed by a 5,000-mile warranty, and as you can see, like all the sole constructions in these models are very similar. The second similarity between these models is that they all have removable insoles. So in all these shoes, you can take out the insole and they have a finished internal construction. So if you are trying to wear your pair of shoes and get really close to the ground and just go with that 5.5 millimeter Feel True rubber sole, you can do that in all these models and have no issues with breakdown. The third similarity between all these models is they all utilize this Hirashi inspired design. So as you can see here, the skeleton of these shoes all have this Hirashi design, and that's kind of signature for most of Xero Shoes training shoes. And overall, they provide a nice lockdown feeling. So all these models do feel fairly consistent in regard to how the shoe locks down that midfoot and provides security when you are wearing them for training, running, and daily wear. So outside of sizing and fit, contextualization of how these shoes perform, and price differences, what are 2 big construction differences right out of the gate that are worth noting? So number 1 is the upper construction in each model. So in the Prio, we have a mesh upper. This model is pretty thick in regard to its overall upper construction, and we have synthetic overlays over the toe box here, throughout the midfoot, and then covering back in the heel. This gives the shoe a bit more structure in regard to its overall upper construction. In the HFS, we have a very lightweight and maneuverable mesh upper that breathes really well, a synthetic layer throughout the toe box and heel back here that is also very lightweight and maneuverable. In the 360, we have additional layers covering the toe box, heel, and throughout the midfoot, and we have a breathable layered mesh and 3D rubber ribs up here on the forefoot, and that is designed for increasing durability with things like rope climbs and providing a bit of grip when you are rope climbing in this model. The second major construction difference is just how the sole feels and interacts with the ground. So in the 360, we have a slightly thicker sole, and that's because of the overall durability that this model provides and how it is designed for multi-directional training and just cross training in general. And the insole in this model, I think, provides a bit more of a responsive nature to it. And that's why I think this model is also a really good option for folks who are trying to get more into cross training with their barefoot shoes. In the HFS, we have a very minimalist sole, pretty much as thin as you can get. So if you take out the insole in this model, you are really close to the ground, and this shoe has a ton of maneuverability to it. In the Prio, it's kind of a middle ground between the slightly thicker nature of the 360 and the super thin HFS. So this model's sole provides a little bit of structure. It's very maneuverable still, and that's why I also recommend this model as being a decent beginner-friendly barefoot shoe. Its sole has a little bit of structure to it, so you can have a little bit of responsiveness to help acclimate you to the style of footwear. Overall, those I think are the 2 biggest construction differences that exist between all these models, and that is outside of obviously how they are intended to perform and their sizing differences and price differences. All right, guys, that wraps up this review and comparison of the Xero Shoes Prio, HFS, and 360. I also have a written article talking about the differences between all of these shoes that goes a bit more in depth. Check that out down there. It is linked below. But as always, if you have any questions on this video or which model to go with, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, drop a subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.